Before the break, we took you to Kogi State, where Chris Ilem spoke to an INEC, the resident electoral commissioner in INEC as well as an election observer. But now let's go to Bayelsa State. We have standing by to speak with us on the preparations for the Bayelsa elections tomorrow. The head of voter education and publicity for INEC in Bayelsa, Mr. Wilfred Igoga, as well as Mr. Ezenwago, board member, IAGA Africa. Gentlemen, thank you very much for joining us this morning. But let me begin with you, Mr. Ezenwago. You recently released a report that talked about some issues, some concerns that you think need to be addressed. Your pre-election press statement that you think there are issues that need to be addressed that INEC needs to pay attention to in the build-up to the election of tomorrow. What are these things that you have seen, and how serious are they likely to bear on the election's results tomorrow? Yeah. Mr. Ezenwago, the question is to you. IAGA Africa recently released a statement.
Okay,
Please go ahead. Go ahead, please.
Yes. Yeah, we had yesterday. We had a press briefing where we highlighted a few of some of the things that we think may need to be improved to get to the kind of election that will meet the expectations of the people of Bayelsa and indeed Nigerians. We highlighted the fact that in our pre-election observation that we indicated that there are indications that there is some stockpiling of arms in a few local governments in the states. We also highlighted the fact that there are possibility of bringing in talks from outside of the states and some within. And then we called attention to the fact also that that there are indications that the election will be commercialized because politicians are already in different parts of the states working to induce voters with monies. In the reports that we also have shows that PVCs are being sold for as low as 500 naira in some places. We also highlighted the issue around the floods that have that many communities have had to suffer in recent times, and which has caused some dislocation, and we are hoping that INEC will be able to deal with that. We also have touched on the fact that INEC will need to work around the issue of logistics to ensure that both their vendors, the NURTW and the Navy that will have responsibility to take these materials into the riverine areas, will ensure that this is done timely and efficiently in such a way that punctuality index for the election will not be affected. We also highlighted the fact that security agents, especially the police, will have a lot more coordination, and that their activities will affect the preparedness of INEC in one way or the other. And one way that this shows is, for instance, if INEC officials are ready as early as 7 o'clock and the police are still holding parades in their stations, it will affect the time that these materials eventually go to where they are supposed to go to. So these are some of the issues that we have highlighted. We also think that in some places there has been a lot of violence, and as you saw in the clash between the APC and PDP supporters in Nembe, we are also pointing to the fact that there has been violence against women and even people, vulnerable people like PWDs in some part of the states. Those are some of the things that we have highlighted and that we think that should be taken care of to have the kind of election that will meet the expectation of the people of Bayelsa.
Okay, then, Mr. Wagu, thank you very much. Let me ask Mr. Wilfred Igoga, how is INEC taking these concerns on board, especially in the area of assuring the voter that all will be well tomorrow and we will have a credible election at the end of the day?
Good morning. And just want to let everyone, especially Bayelsans, we have just about 24 hours to the election. And in terms of our preparedness and readiness, we are ready and good to go. Our preparation didn't just start today. We started right from the time the timetable was released, talking about May 16th. And of course, with the publication of the notice of the election, August 17th, we had 14 activities for us to implement as a commission. And we had the last activity, and at the beginning of this week, the non-sensitive materials which we actually received some weeks back have been taken to the local government area. As we speak, right now the resident electoral commissioner and some other support recs and even national commissioners that are here in Bayelsa State just to ensure things go on well, they are at the Central Bank of Nigeria, Yenagoa branch, for the retrieval of the sensitive materials which have actually been sorted into local government areas and into the racks for them to be taken directly to the registration area centers in the 105 registration areas we have in Bayelsa State. Then in terms of security arrangement, INEC has been engaging the Inter-Consultative Committee on Election Security on plans and arrangement just to ensure that everyone is secured during the electoral process. And in terms of logistics, all have been put in place. You know, Bayelsa, majority of our locations are riverine, and so we've actually engaged in an agreement with boat vendors using the Maritime Union that will be supplying us the boats. And we didn't just go stop there. We actually did the profiling of them using the Nigerian Navy, actually provide them just to ensure that they understand what they are going into and there'll be no sabotage along the way. And enough boats have been provided for that. Then for the buses and other vehicles we'll be using, we entered into agreement with the Nigerian Union of Road Transport Workers and the National Association of Road Transport Owners. They've also entered agreement with INEC, and also they've been enlightened on what they are going to do. And also they've assured us that they are going to actually carry out their operations just the way we have told them. So what we are saying in terms of voter education, we have done a lot, and even the civil society organizations partner with INEC just to ensure that every voter gets to understand the process, and that so that the issue of invalid votes as is recorded in past elections will be drastically reduced. And apart from that, they know what we are talking about, especially the issue of vote buying and selling. INEC as a commission has actually put out strategies just to ensure that we mitigate this menace of vote buying and selling by ensuring that one, the voting is done in secret, which is in the cubicle, and of course, the ballot paper that will be issued, how it will be handled by rolling it inwards, so that even when you get to the cubicle to do your thumb printing, you also know how to roll it back and bring it out in the open to drop in the ballot box. So now the question is, Bayelsans, the people that we have arranged and planned for, are they ready to key into what INEC has to offer in less than 24 hours from now?
Well, that's a big question, and I expect that that question should also be answered by you, being the one in charge of voter education and publicity. But we have to thank you very much, Mr. Wilfred Igoga, head voter education and publicity and INEC Bayelsa State, as well as board member Yaga Africa Ezenwago, also in Bayelsa. Thank you so much. Well, there are bigger issues, no doubt about that, that INEC has had to contend with in the build-up to the election of tomorrow. Let's go to Markwe now for more on that. Markwe.
Well, thank you, Ayo. We have with us this morning Mr. Festus Okoye, who is the national commissioner and also a chairman voter education and information at INEC. You're welcome to Sunrise Daily.
Thank you.
I'm wondering, normally when elections are approaching, people ought to be excited. People ought to be happy because it's supposed to be a celebration of democracy. If a candidate has done well, they most likely will want to re-elect that candidate, give the endorsements to that candidate. If they feel the candidate hasn't done well or the person who has been serving them hasn't done well, they will remove the person and put whoever it is that they want to. That's when the people exercise their franchise. Do you sense any excitement? Are you able to sense or gauge if people are excited that elections are approaching?
Yes, the people of Bayelsa and the people of Kogi State are excited and at the same time cautious. They're excited in the sense that they will have an opportunity to exercise their democratic franchise. There's also an element of trepidation because of the history of both states in terms of electoral violence. So I think it's a combination of these two that is giving an impression as if the people are not excited.
I'm happy that you know that there seems to be an impression and that there seems to be something hanging in the air, some sort of apprehension as to how the polls. Are you feeling that also as the commission in charge of conducting the elections?
Yes, we do. This is because in the last a few days, a lot has happened.
Yes.
We started the preparations for this election on time, and as you heard from the resident electoral commissioner for Kogi State and from the head voter education in Bayelsa, we released a timetable on the 16th day of May 2019, and that gave the political parties enough opportunity, enough leeway, and enough window to also begin their own preparations. And then, based on our own timetable, we moved all the non-sensitive materials to the various local governments on time, and all of them were batched to registration area level, waiting. And we also moved in some of the sensitive materials to location on time. But some of the political parties also had their own challenges in terms of their party primary elections, in terms of issues around their campaigns, and also in terms of issues on who is the rightful candidate of a political party and who is not the rightful candidate. And some of these things impacted on some of the trepidation that you are seeing.
I see that you have a court judgment. I don't know if it's a judgment or if it's an injunction, but I mean, we'll come to that shortly because there are issues around the particular political party in Bayelsa State, whether or not to be able to field candidates. But I want to ask you, how is this going to affect the issues which have happened in the last 1 week? I mean, in terms of some of the violence that we have seen, in some instances, candidates alleging that they have been, their rights have been violated or are breached. We've also seen their secretariats burnt in some instances. We've seen supporters of political parties clash, things of the sort. How is this affecting the level playing field, which INEC is supposed to ensure that the parties have to contest in these elections?
Well, you know, the conduct of election is a multi-stakeholder venture.
Indeed.
It is the responsibility of the Independent National Electoral Commission to organize elections and supervise elections. It is also the responsibility of the political parties to make sure that they play according to the rules and regulations set out both in the Constitution, the Electoral Act, and regulations and guidelines. But when you have political parties who are supposed to go in a very civil manner to go and mobilize votes from their supporters and from the general public, engaging in high-level rhetorics, engaging in hate speech, and also heating up the polity, it creates an impression that what we are going into is a civil war rather than an ordinary civic responsibility. So that has also impacted on the atmosphere in some of these states. But we didn't allow that to dampen our spirit. The chairman of the Independent National Electoral Commission went to Kogi State twice and also went to Bayelsa twice, meeting with the different stakeholders, meeting with the different security agencies, and appealing for calm so that we can change the negative perception and negative narrative relating to these two states as states that are prone to electoral violence, which for us is not good enough. And I really believe that despite everything that has happened, despite the heightened tension in some of the states, despite the rhetorics, and despite all the allegations and counter-allegations, that there's a possibility that we are going to have good elections because we prepared.
There's a possibility. That's all the people want.
Yes.
It cannot be a possibility.
No. In terms of the preparations of the Independent National Electoral Commission, you can see we're already prepared. By this morning, the the resident electoral commissioner for Bayelsa and the support resident electoral commissioners and some national commissioners of INEC that are in Bayelsa, they're already at the central bank, and the materials for Bayelsa have already been batched to registration area level. So they are moving straight to the registration areas, and from there they will stage to the polling units in the morning. So, and we already have.
What we're saying
yes.
is it cannot just. It has to be a certainty that the elections will be good. Has to be a certainty.
We have prepared for
That's what the people want.
No, we have prepared for the elections to be good.
Yes.
In terms of all the things we are supposed to do. the appeal should be to the political parties to also make sure that their supporters behave themselves during this particular period and that they don't do anything untoward to prevent the people from coming out in a very serene atmosphere to exercise their democratic franchise.
Let me quickly ask you about the APC's participation in Bayelsa State. We're seeing all manner of stories in the papers, but I think that this day puts it very clearly. INEC's big dilemma: will election hold in Bayelsa State with or without the APC? Can you quickly answer that?
I will give you two answers. One, the election, we have gone too far. Elections are already ongoing because the materials for Bayelsa are leaving the central bank today to the registration areas. Yesterday, they were batched to registration area level. So the question of whether materials are leaving or whether materials are not leaving is just a moot point. The materials are already on their way to the various registration areas. The Navy, the Air Force, all the security agencies that are supposed to assist in this election.
In other words, the APC is on the ballot paper.
Yes, because the ballots have already been printed and there is no court order and there is no restraining order saying that the Independent National Electoral Commission should not have APC as a political party on the ballot.
What did the order say? What
the order said is that the candidates, that we should not put either the plaintiff or the plaintiff who went to court from the APC or the candidate whose name was submitted to the Independent National Electoral Commission as the candidate of the APC, that we should not put the candidates on the ballot. And we don't have the name of any candidate on the ballot papers that we printed. What we have in our ballot papers are the logo of the various political parties and not the names of the candidates.
But isn't that dangerous? I mean, it means that if the people are voting for a particular party, they don't know the candidate that they're voting for. For that political party.
Practically, and based on some Supreme Court judgments, it is the political party that is contesting this election. That's why we have the name of the political party on the ballot. It is when we get to the issue of declaration and return that we now unveil the political party to see whose candidate is which candidate has been nominated for a particular position. So we will get to that when we get to what we call from EC8E.
With the controversies that have happened with security, especially in Kogi, we saw some police leaked police cable going around on social media.
Yes.
Do you think that, are you confident that the security agencies have gained the trust of the people, that they have also provided a level playing field in terms of how they'll be securing people in these elections?
Well, we have engaged with all the security agencies that we provide security for this election, and they have assured us that they are ready and that they are willing and that they are really, really prepared for this election. I saw the cable you are talking about, and in less than 4 hours, that cable was withdrawn because the police informed us that that particular cable was issued in error, and different police officers have been posted to go and take charge of election security in Kogi State. So they are also acting proactively, and the moment they get any suggestion relating to any infraction, they have acted on it expeditiously. So we are confident that the police will act professionally and will act ethically in relation to this election. And we are confident that they will provide good security for the election.
Right. Well, we have to take a break at this moment. When we come back, we'll beg your pardon now. Mr. Festus Okoye, I have to thank you for coming on Sunrise Daily. We have to thank you so much for sharing your time and thoughts with us. We hope that the elections go as planned tomorrow and that they will be good for certain, not as a possibility. Well, you know, Sunrise Daily continues in a moment. Please stay with us.